Cool. Okay, we're live. Today I'm joined by Matt Kennedy, who's the CEO of Fussy, which is a sustainable natural deodorant brand. Happy to have you here, Matt. Why don't you give us a quick background, how you started the brand and what your story is to date?
Hi, Adam. Yeah, great to be here, and Leah. So yeah, thanks for having me. Firstly, I guess. Yeah, background's a bit of a weird one. My route to being a founder was kind of a bit zigzaggy, but all good in the end. So I guess I've always been really passionate about the world around us and sustainability. I was actually a building surveyor before I was a founder, so I qualified as a surveyor, where I really focused in on designing and renovating commercial properties to make them more sustainable. So I focused on that for working in the city for 4 or 5 years. And then from kind of building buildings, I moved into building brands. So I moved into advertising, where I was a creative for 4 or 5 years. And there I was creating ad campaigns effectively. I was like, but mainly above the line TV and press campaigns for, I guess, some of the worst polluters in the world, if I'm honest. Like, I was working for some of the companies we're trying to take on now. So I was selling the stuff that we're all consuming and is destroying the planet, and kind of witnessing it firsthand. So I was like, well, what am I doing? What am I doing? Kind of selling my soul to the devil in a way. But I guess I was becoming increasingly frustrated that we were working on all these briefs at the advertising agency for the likes of Gillette or Pantene, who have the ability to address the problems we face, but don't, for whatever reason that may be. You've got big legacy supply chains that take a long time to change. So that kind of really ignited the passion in me, and I guess I kind of used my creative skills then to basically start Fussy, and thought, we can do better ourselves. And I guess at the same time, it's like a perfect storm. My wife and my co-founder wife's Eddie, they were both pregnant, and they were struggling to find a natural deodorant that worked. So it was this kind of the situation of, at work, witnessing it firsthand and at home, that kind of really ignited the passion to kind of have a look for how we can make a difference. And we identified the bathroom as being one of the main polluters. In the kitchen, I think around 80% of plastic is recycled. In the bathroom, it's much less than that. So that's where we really honed in on, and Fussy exists to banish single-use plastic from the bathroom as a whole. Just so happens that deodorant's our first product, but that is our mission, is to rid the bathroom of plastic. Because ultimately, if we don't change, people aren't going to stop buying products. That's just not, ideally that's what we do, and that would solve all the issues. So it's about how we move that consumption to be more sustainable, and that's what we're trying to do and promote.
Yeah, we were speaking to James of Fairley in Ireland last week, actually, and he's a sustainable retailer, and he was saying exactly the same thing. At the end of the day, that consuming isn't going to go away, but we have to all sort of play a small part, and obviously that hopefully will accumulate and add up. Just a quick one. Your career seems to have went in a bit of a 360. So what type of skills from your previous initial career have you carried over and you found helped you as a founder?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm really I kind of like to say career is a bit of a dirty word, because it kind of implies that you get a job and you do one thing and you stick at it, which is one career, right? But mine's not been like that, and I think actually a career can be multiple jobs, taking skills, and then eventually they all come together, and they have, fortunately for me, all come together in like a really weird way. So when I was a surveyor, I was consulting it, basically, working for clients, building decks, analyzing numbers, running large construction projects, which is all about project management and margins, and tendering work out, and so I guess kind of financial management, and all of that came into that. And then when I was working in advertising, it was like none of that at all. It was just like purely creative, which is why I left surveying. And now it's kind of both of those things merged together. So it's kind of, I'm kind of now at the intersection of creativity and business, and sustainability, which was present in all of my careers. So like I said, as a surveyor, I focused on climate change and addressing that through building design. And as a creative, I did loads of stuff. Like I tried to tackle food waste. I had a small startup where we took leftover rice from Japanese restaurants, and we turned that into Japanese rice wine. And we sold that to a European restaurant chain that now do that with all their waste rice gets converted into alcohol, which they then sell. So there's always been that element. So it's really been just like a combination of factors, and it's something actually that I'm quite passionate about outside of sustainability. Is like going to schools and speaking to kids and saying like, don't feel the pressure to like choose what you do too early. But that's probably a whole nother podcast.
Absolutely. No, I love that, and I resonate with it. I used to be a kindergarten teacher, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, the parallels there. Now I'm able to use these skills to look after Leah, who's like my
You wish.
Amazing. Okay, yeah, I'll let Leah take over from here, and we'll start to get into like how you actually built the brand once you had the idea.
Yeah. So away from this, obviously sustainability for a second, what was Fussy's go-to marketing strategy when you started?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously it's completely evolved, and I think when Eddie and I first started Fussy, we were doing it as a side project, like before work, every morning, every evening, get up at 6, go to local cafe, and so, you know, I think back then we were like Googling what go-to-market strategy was in some ways. But no, our strategy was very simply like prove that we've got an idea here before we kind of go hell for leather. And it was all about proving that idea on Kickstarter. So we launched as a Kickstarter. And for those that don't know, because it's amazing the number of people I speak to and they're like, what? But Kickstarter is a way of basically pre-selling a product in order to bring it to market, so people can pre-order it and then you can take that money and make it happen. That's the plan anyway. So we did that. It's a good way of getting some capital in, proving there's demand for the product, which is the refillable deodorant, and really then the plan was to build a community around that, and then grow the business off the back of that community, and that worked really well. So we got around 3,000 customers organically from Kickstarter in a month, and then off the back of that we were then able to raise a small initial pre-seed round of investment, because we could go to investors and say, look, we've proven it, people want it, and we haven't even got the product yet, and then it, and here we are, kind of thing, and now it's on to the next strategy, I guess.
How did you create the actual, like, where did the research come into it for the ingredients that went into the product? Because I know there's a bit of a debate as well in the deodorant space, sort of natural ingredients versus synthetic. Like, how did you go about researching and coming up with the formulation?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the hardest part, right? Like, we were like, how the hell do we make a deodorant? So just did what everyone did and like go to Google, and like you're going through like 10 pages of Google trying to find people. And I think, and then it was LinkedIn, I think, cosmetic scientist, cosmetic chemist. And this was after initially we found like a homemade deodorant recipe and tried making it ourselves. That ended in like complete disaster. Like I literally burnt through a saucepan. Like you could literally see the. I was like, "There's no way you want to put that on your armpit." So we knew we needed a professional, and we luckily we call her Dr. Sweat. I can't reveal her real name. That's actually no joke. She won't allow me to. But so Dr. Sweat formulated for us, and we spent a good 12 months over 40 different variations, testing on friends and family, and never animals, obviously, to develop this formula.
Awesome. I think when we were speaking to James last week, sustainability and going green is such a huge topic at the moment anyway. So I think, like you said, with those communities getting in there, when you've got a good products like that, when people are really focused on being ethical, making sure everything's ethically sourced, if your product's good, it's gonna sell itself. It's gonna do well.
Exactly. Yeah, and the product is so important. Like don't get me, like, our whole company is built around sustainability and banishing single-use plastic, okay, and looking at our supply chain as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But if the product doesn't stack up and the product doesn't work, people aren't interested. Like, we surveyed our customers before we launched the product. We did loads of research, and the reasons people wanted to buy a refillable natural deodorant, the most important thing was that it worked, and actually also that it was desirable and looked nice. And if it saved the planet, it was kind of a bonus. And I think obviously there's like the hardcore people that already use natural deodorants, already very sustainable, that order might change. But if we want to create mass impact, we have to hit the mass market, and the only way to do that is making sure the product works.
100%. That's so interesting. Go on, Leah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, being in that community, the first thing is to be aware of what you're doing, what part of consuming is going to have an impact on the thing. So as soon as people are super aware of things, they're going to know. When you give them something, they'll go, that's not going to work, or this is going to work, or you're having me on, I'm not buying this again. And it's like, you can't do over the hippies. The hippies know. They know everything.
Exactly. Yeah. We actually use we've got a really unique formula. We use a probiotic that you more commonly found in yogurt, and that literally targets the bad bacteria in your armpit. And because sweat doesn't smell, it's when it reacts with the bacteria in your armpit or any other place it may be. So we target that bacteria, and then when your sweat hits it, it doesn't smell.
Yeah.
Leah, take notes.
No, I just wanted to ask, if it's a probiotic, is it technically is it still vegan? Yeah, because I know it was advertised as vegan.
Yeah, it's fully vegan and cruelty free. Yeah.
Ordering 10 for Christmas.
20% off at the moment as well.
Oh, fabulous! My boyfriend can have one as well then. Adam, I'll get you a few.
I don't smell, Leah. It's you. I have to stay away from it. This is why we're remote. That's very interesting, Matt. I think, as you said, like the sustainability, I know there's also brands that we work with is a big part of the positioning, but ultimately, I think when you do that qualitative research, and we've done it for a lot of brands as well over email, ultimately the most important thing is that consumers want a product that works. And then it's interesting how I think a lot of brands lean in with the sustainability, and I'm not trying to downplay the importance of it, because I think it is a crucial message and it probably will become more important. But ultimately, as you said, if it doesn't work, the product, then no one's going to just buy it as, out of sympathy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the unique position we've got as a startup is that unlike companies that are now backpedaling and trying to be more sustainable, is that they've got to undo huge systems, and we've got the benefit of being small and growing, and we can put those systems, we can put our stake in the ground now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's good, especially with things like deodorant, like you mentioned before. You've got huge companies like Pantene and things like that. You can market it however you want, but when you look into like the ethics of things, it's things sold in China have to be tested on animals. It's like, so how are you going to market that to be sustainable? You can tell me it's got less plastic in it, it's got this, that, and the other. You can send it out in a cardboard box surrounded by little, like, them dissolve-y packaging peanut things. But your ethics, it's like, where do you go with that? And I think it's a little bit difficult, especially when things are kind of what we mentioned last week, Adam, about greenwashing and things like that. Just because you put some flowers on your poster doesn't mean we know that you're recycling things, love.
Totally.
Just got a quick comment. I'm not sure who this is because it's came up LinkedIn user. For some reason, it's not showing me, but I think I know who this is. It's like all salt, and it's about being nimble. Please say your name, who the LinkedIn user is, so we can identify you. Okay, cool, Matt. So PR, I know, has been like a big part of your strategy growing the brands, and you said to me, like in personal, you've had some hit and miss. Which ones have been most effective for you, and how do you create a PR strategy? Because as you said, it's sort of, you're taking a big chance, right? Like, how much effort do you put into this, and how do you start to develop basics of a strategy for PR.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I'm not going to lie. It is a little bit hit and miss, and I don't think we actually have it like a strategy. I think actually it comes down for us it being baked into the values of the company that we instill. So, for example, one of our values is that everything is an opportunity, and that was what led to our stunt with Unilever. You know, when we got a letter telling us to take down some adverts we'd put online, comparing our products to theirs. You know, we saw that as an opportunity, and that came down, to the values of the company as opposed to as part of our promotional strategy. You know what I mean? So I think if you can bake seeing things as opportunities and creativity into your company, then hopefully those like opportunities to PR hopefully will naturally arise. Then the strategy, I guess, comes in, like, how do you amplify that PR? How do you get the word out there, kind of thing, and that you can work on. But yeah, like, I'm not saying there isn't a way to do it, but it's not like we've mapped out our PR strategy as such. In terms of like classical PR, like getting good reviews and in the press and stuff like that, we work with an amazing PR exec, basically, who's like shit hot with that. But in terms of the stunts, it's a bit hit and miss. You know, everyone wants to try and do the Dollar Shave Club advert that went viral, you know, years back. But you know, it's hard. And the fact is that I think his name's Adam. I can't remember, but you know, he was a stand-up comic. You know what I mean? So the owner of the business. So again, it was baked into the company. So that's kind of our belief, I think.
Yeah, I think by its nature, a lot of PR just comes down to chance, and you can't really plan chance sometimes, can you? You've just got to be opportunistic and try and exploit things. But as you said, it's just hit and miss. What other way? You said you got some media exposure. How have you done that? I imagine there's a bit more of a plan behind that.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, we've got like key, I guess, media targets that under different verticals, be that TV or press, and then it's just about nurturing those relationships early on. You know, making sure that those approaches aren't just another kind of cold email landing in their inbox. You know, can you send them product, and can you make them open it in an interesting way, or can you make them laugh or smile, or getting to know them? And so, I mean, that's kind of like our approach in, like, kind of in more traditional PR terms. So yeah.
The branding itself is beautiful. Who created the packaging? I think I heard on a podcast that you guys has a lot of input into this yourself in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Eddie and I both from the kind of advertising background, and so we're particularly kind of fussy over like pixels and design and stuff like that. So at the very beginning, certainly Kickstarter, it was all kind of done by us, and then after we raised our funding round, we got an agency to help us, but we're still very much hands-on with that side of the business. And you know, it's really important to us because ultimately, you know, we're trying to build a brand, and it's brands that last and survive, and especially in D2C, something they do really well in the States, isn't it? Like, you know, you look at the branding of the D2C brands over there. So yeah, we're big believers in brand.
Yeah, you've got to sell the click as well, and it's very hard to do without good branding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Just on the PR topic, I think we should do a flash mob, Adam, by the way. Just came to mind. I'm just putting it out there.
You're not getting me dancing on TikTok. I did it once with a dressing gown on Slack, and it got posted everywhere on LinkedIn.
Guys, I'm going to have to do this live. I've got to move to my charger live.
Go ahead, jump over. We like the authenticity.
Yeah, I can walk we're on the go.
I can walk and talk. This is startup life, guys.
I feel like we should do
It's definitely a first. I'm quite excited by what's going on.
I know. I feel like I'm on Oh, that Christmas tree is lovely, by the way.
Not my house.
I thought you said it was a startup, man. It looks like a really rich house you're living in. I think we lost a bit of signal.
Oh, I think the flash mob's a really good idea.
Yeah,
I'm back.
There he is.
Yeah, switching it up, new environment.
Well, go on, Leah, I'll let you pick up.
So getting serious again now. Which marketing strategies have been most effective for growing Fussy to date, whether that be from the beginning and there was like a big jump, or maybe the longest going kind of strategy that you've had from the beginning until now, or as well, any flops that you've had? Like, have you put something out there and you've gone, actually, that maybe didn't work as well as what we thought it might?
Totally, yeah. I guess first thing is like, and I've seen you guys talk about it a bit in your posts and stuff, is that it's like an ecosystem, isn't it? And everything's got to feed everything. You know, you've got to feed the beast. Yep. Like your paid media feeds your email list. You know, and your brand. You know, if people recognize your brand and you've got good reviews, you know, your cost of acquisition comes down, and all of that. So, you know, and your operations, if you deliver on time, you get better reviews, and so everything links together. So, that ecosystem is firstly really important, and we focused, because our launch was actually delayed, we focused on making sure we had a lot of that ecosystem set up for our launch. So all our email flows, you know, we were really thorough on those from the beginning, so that when we launched, they were ready to go. You know, our paid media approach from the launch, our branding, you know, and so I think it's just making sure across all of those touch points, firstly, you're not, you know, people use the phrase the leaky bucket, don't they? Like, especially with paid media, you know, if you've got a site that's not converting, then don't put loads of money behind paid media. So we firstly made sure that those kind of D2C fundamentals were established, so that we were set to grow when we turned on marketing. And then initially it was very heavily paid media, and still is, but supported, like I say, heavily by PR, and creating a product that, you know, we call it deodorant for the Instagram generation. So marketing is almost baked into our product and the design of it. Like, people want to touch it and feel it and take photos of it and write about it because it looks and is designed how it is. So so I guess it's kind of, you know, it's using the product backed up by a good ecosystem and then paid media. But yeah, and then going back to the PR approach, I guess what we've done is we've when we've got those pieces of PR, be them the stunts or even press, is we've then amplified them through paid media as well, to kind of really get the most out of them.
How much additional traffic, if you don't mind me asking, for example, the Unilever stunts, like how much did that bring to the website, and did those additional people who came to the website end up converting, or was it just like, oh, what's going on here, and then, you know, didn't really move the needle much?
Yeah, do you know what, the Unilever stunt, it didn't really move the needle in terms of conversion, I wouldn't say, but what it did is, it did a brand job that normally startups at our stage don't get to invest in brand marketing. It's all, you know, direct response. So it was an opportunity to demonstrate our kind of some of our core values, and it got us introduced to people. So I think, you know, because the apology letter to Unilever, I posted it on LinkedIn to the CEO of Unilever, who then responded on LinkedIn. It was LinkedIn where we were getting most of the traffic. But that was good for us in terms of like speaking to investors, potential future investors that I'm still in chat in talks with now. So it did a bit of almost a kind of B2B job more than the consumer piece. The one that really helped us in terms of, you know, acquisition cost and traffic to site. My headphones, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
What really helped was when we were on this morning on ITV. So Holly Willoughby with the product, and then we amplified that through social, and that pretty much halved their acquisition cost overnight, to be honest. Wow. So yeah, I might have to speak to Holly again.
It is interesting. I think if you look at the plight of Facebook and well, I don't want to say it's on the demise. It's definitely not. I think it's just became a lot more difficult because of, you know, multiple circumstances. But some of the traditional advertising mediums like TV and the newspaper, some of our clients are experimenting with at the moment. And like you said, using that like and amplifying it through paid is having really good results. And I think it goes back to your point of looking at things holistically as part of an ecosystem rather than saying TV versus Facebook ads, which is just stupid, or email versus SMS. You need to look at how to bring them all together in a way that lowers your acquisition cost and obviously is conducive to improving the lifetime value.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And for us, yeah, I mean, and then there's all sorts of stuff about who's actually the most valuable customer, right? Like from different marketing sources. But for us, the other two really key things that I think we're going to see a lot of brands doing is turning back to the real world now. Like we're already seeing it with pop-ups or trade shows and events. And then moving into retail, not just to drive sales, but to drive people online and to get brand exposure. I think that's going to be really key.
Let's go on to that then, because
nice segue.
It's the next question. Also, I was speaking to I left a comment rather on the CEO of a company on LinkedIn this morning who was basically saying they use retail to complement they are primarily D2C and they use retail to complement that experience. But I think people got into the habit of looking at D2C in a box, which is just really naive, because you're going to hit the ceiling, right? Like you can't keep scaling Facebook ads forever, and people churn, people get sick, people get bored, people buy competitors, and ultimately people still like to shop offline regardless of the hype that you see. So it's very important to meet consumers where most convenient for them. With that being said, you're primarily D2C. You said then about possibly moving into retail. What's your strategy going to be when you do that?
Yeah, totally. So our strategy is to kind of find a few really key partners that we can grow with and that we can kind of help each other, as opposed to spread ourselves across like 100 different stores, because actually, it turns into more work, I think, for possibly less reward. So that's kind of the focus on it for us. And then you're right, it's about feeding our D2C offering as well. So I think Olipop in the US, actually, D2C drinks brand, was saying that they get like 50%, 60% of their traffic comes from retail onto their website. How they measure that, I don't quite know, but like that's amazing. And yeah, and we're seeing it really as a brand awareness piece as well. Because you'd be amazed in like the startup world. You think even companies turning over like 10 million a year, right? You think who are fairly well known, but outside of the startup world, you go to you ask the cab driver if they've heard of them, they probably haven't. So it's about brand awareness for us as well, and there's a lot of people out there that aren't looking at Facebook ads and whatnot. And then the other bit on retail, I guess, for us is that doing it at the right time. So you've got to be super confident in your product, super confident in your supply chain, make sure that's all watertight before you then try to go to retail, because you can easily get caught out there, I think.
A lot of brands that we've worked with have went retail first and then D2C second, and obviously their D2C side is really tied into what they're allowed to do based on their retail relationships. Do you think there's any benefit of being digitally native first and then going into retail? Does it give you any leverage in these relationships, do you think?
100%, yeah, without doubt. Firstly, it allows us to have a direct relationship with our customer, tweak and improve our product before we then go to a big retailer who's going to like pull the product apart. So we can build community. And then secondly, it's customer data, right? What retailers want certainly is our customer data. If we can go to them and go, look, we've got 100,000 customers and we know what they want. We know they want this, they want that, they want that. Together with you, we can help bring that to them. Way more valuable, and also for exit. And if anyone is running a startup and has that on their mind, customer data is going to be really, really important for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's move on from the marketing talk. I'll let Leah get back to her hippie questions because I know she's.
So which aspect of the business is hardest to be sustainable? So that can be in production, shipping, or it can be on the back end. You know, being a Kickstarter is pretty sustainable, but like funding and things like that. What is the hardest part about being sustainable?
So I guess there's a couple of points. I guess the hardest part of the business to keep sustainable is probably the supply chain, and by that I mean external partners, because unless you fully own your supply chain, like Harry's Razors have done now, they've bought all their own factories and stuff like that. You can't control it entirely. Like we use suppliers that use green energy on the roofs and whatnot, but I can't control how much paper their staff are using, or what they're recycling, but I can't control it. And they can tell me stuff and show me certifications, but unless you own that supply chain fully, I guess you can never be 100% sure. So I think that's a challenge, definitely. And then I guess the second challenge is balancing purpose and profit. We believe strongly, that's why we're B Corp pending, that's something that we can really do. But it does mean that sometimes you might not make as much money, and some companies might find that hard, or might have tight margins that don't afford it. So I guess those are a couple of the challenges. And yeah, I guess going back to the supply chain challenge, hardest to control, but it's also the greatest opportunity. Because if we can turn that supply chain green, if we can, like I say, consume responsibly, but also manufacture responsibly. The manufacturing industry produces something like 60 to 70% of emissions. If all those factories turn to clean green energy, we'll be in a much better position. So I think companies have a responsibility to provide consumers with better products, but they also have to make sure that those products are manufactured and delivered more sustainably as well.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned before about the deodorant for the Instagram generation, how do you ever find it quite difficult? So, even with maybe PR packages or sending things out, obviously, Instagram generation, everything's about aesthetics. Everything's got to look good, everything like down to receipts being sent via email or thingy. Do you find aesthetically keeping that sustainable packaging and things like that, is that quite difficult to do sometimes? I think I'm 22, our generation love getting things in the post, taking pictures of it and putting it on Instagram. Things that are sustainable aren't always the prettiest. So do you think that is quite a hard thing to come over sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely the harder route, right? But it's definitely doable. So we're really fussy about like the inks with and the cardboard that we use. And again, it comes down to creativity, I think, and looking at how much cardboard we use. Can we make the packaging as small as it needs to be? Like all of those decisions, but also provide a great experience for the customer. But ultimately, sometimes it does cost a bit more money up front in the design process or in the manufacturing process. But I don't think we've actually, to be completely honest, struggled that much to make it look that good. I mean, our box is like quite plain, and we're actually bringing out a new box which is a bit more colourful. So we have, I guess, struggled there. We veered away purposefully from making it like this bright, colourful box, and that we want the focus to be on the product. But so yeah, it's harder, but it's definitely doable, I think.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Couple of comments. I think this is Irfan, who's got his own brand. We own all our supply chain also. It's possibly the best move for us as a brand. Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, Matt. So do you think, obviously, these big corporations, because you're just a small fish in a massive pond, and obviously they must have to shoulder a lot of the responsibility. Do you think you need to see change happen from the top and have these big organizations sort of take a more holistic approach rather than just prioritizing profits for it to change? Because it's going to be really difficult for you to move the needle unless you were to grow to their size, and then you can, like you said, own your own supply chain, and then you can make the changes that you want.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, actually Unilever, to their credit, are doing some really great stuff. Like, in terms of sustainability, they really are. So hats off to them for that. But I think consumers are pretty switched on, and I'm not sure it is like us like wanting to be the size of Unilever necessarily, but I think there'll always be room for consumers who want a brand that really stands by their values, and they can tell that we're called Fussy because we're fussy about everything, our supply chain, our ingredients, our impact on the planet, and we want you to be too. So I think there's still appetite from consumers to find those smaller brands that the values really shine through, and consumers are switched on, and they recognize them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just recently, I mean, I think I read it either today or yesterday, Lush have kind of said about coming away from social media because it's not seen as a safe space, and they want their stores and they want their business and company to be seen as a safe space. So to be taking that much cut into your profit from not being on social media, not even on TikTok or anything like that, and I know their target audience must all be on Instagram, all be on TikTok, all be on thingy. But I mean, they have got to a size now where they can probably afford to do that. But I think they have got so much praise from doing it because everybody who shops in Lush is like, yeah, this is amazing. Oh my God, yeah, you're doing it to make a huge difference. So
yeah, that I saw that. I thought that was really cool.
yeah.
And they do stand by their values. I think Lush.
Yeah, massively.
Yes, they're profitable. I think like 20 million a year or something. So they can definitely afford to do that. But there's a lot of businesses that even if they could afford to do that, like they've still got shareholders, like people. But I'm sure there's still pressure to hit targets. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
like hats off to them, and hopefully Fussy can one day shut down shop. We did close for Black Friday last year, to be fair, but we weren't. We didn't have as much traffic as this year, so this year it's a bit harder to do. But so this year we focused on how we promote, buying something that you're going to keep and being more conscious with that.
Yeah, use it as a time to really kind of, if you're going to get extra traffic, that's more people being aware and you're able to inform. So
exactly.
Stop bullying all these brands, Leah, leaving bad reviews, then we won't have any need for safe spaces.
I don't leave bad reviews.
Oh God, bad reviews.
Just to finish off then, Matt, basically, what would your advice be to new founders in the space? Because it is very competitive. I think in many ways it's easier than ever to start a brand, but it's also harder than ever to actually build a brand. So what would your advice be to others entering the space?
Totally. I've got so much like things I've learned and pieces of advice. And I think you're right. We're in a different era of D2C now from 10 years ago, where you could just put a shop online. Like, you do have to build a brand now, I think, and focus on that. But my first bit of advice would be kind of away from the business, because as your company, everything is really emotional, really personal, and like it's really hard, especially if your first time, to separate yourself from the business sometimes. And by that I mean that if your business fails, you haven't failed. So my advice would be to zoom out. So sometimes we can have like really bad days and it literally feels like the business is about to collapse and end. But then what you have to do is like you're looking as if your whole business is that day, and it's not. It's like the last year. So when you're having a bad day, bad week, even bad month, like just zoom out and see what the graph will look like, and I bet you it'll still be going up, but it'll just be like this, you know. So that's definitely like something that I use to kind of stay resilient. Is like, oh, it's just a bad day but it's out of 365. And then I guess the other thing would be, don't worry about the feeling that everyone's better than you or you're making it up or anything like that. Like, everyone's making it up. I mean, maybe not everyone, but I reckon the majority of people are learning on the fly. And as long as you're being hungry and like really educating yourself, then you've got nothing to worry about.
Completely agree, and I resonate with that a lot. Last week I had a bad couple of days. You know, it's hard to create that separation, isn't it? Because it is your baby. It's not just a job. Like you can't stop thinking about it in many ways. But I think, as you said, not to feel like a failure when you do go through those tough times, because you know the good times are good, as long as you're on the right path. And like you said, you've got the appetite and curiosity to innovate and learn more. Then the good times will come back.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And try and enjoy the ride. I've read like so many interviews with founders when they've said the first few years are the best. And I've been like, really? God.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. No. Must be people who enjoy having no sleep and no life. But yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Matt, it's been a pleasure. How can people find out more about Fussy? Do you want to give a little plug about the Black Friday sale at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. Go to getfussy.com. Yeah, it's Get Fussy because fussy.com costs 50 grand, so we haven't got there yet. So getfussy.com, 20% off, no voucher codes needed. And yeah, help us create a better smelling planet for everybody, basically.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. If anyone's got any questions for Matt, feel free to drop them in the comments. I can see a few have just came through, so please feel free to do it. Matt, I'll tag you on LinkedIn, but we're going to leave it here. Thank you once again for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Leah. And thanks, everyone, for watching.
Cheers.
Nice one. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.